Um, Hello guys. I wanted to record this video today because I've been asked to, really, and I would need the full screen. So I will just get myself minimized, or actually I'll just put myself off. So let's work with this little clip, like I have prepared for you. And the subject of today's conversation is gonna be an actual thin points and issues in some of the relationships in between the inter-industrial bodies, like a developer and the publisher. And hopefully, this video will help a lot of you to understand why some of the things happen, why censorship happens, like why the whole system is currently not perfect and allows a lot of potential spaces where something can go wrong. And well, it's just in general informative. It's a general pipeline of contract in between publisher and developer and the game being developed. Number of red hot issues, things that you need to put attention to being a developer. In 6 segments of which are contractual issues in general, supervision from publisher part issues, marketing model issues, and relationship management, general business development, platform and distribution. I also have prepared this little systematic problem that a lot of companies have at this point in between supervision and marketing model, that hopefully will again help you understand why games get changed, why the pipeline is structured the way it's structured, why we have a lot of legacy issues, and hopefully, personally from my side, will help some people to understand that most of the issues we're currently having are in fact not market or not people problem. It's more or less a number of problems that got together into a systemic crisis in the industry, mostly in relationships, production, and structure. And we really need to start put our attention to it. So, starting with it very simply, for if you not aware of this, I'll take away my book I've been writing in the morning. So let's go super quickly. What's the publisher and developer relationship is? So publisher and developer go into the contract, which may happen at the different stages of the development of the game from the developer end. My only comment here is that, as a general rule, the further down the line and with more leverage you get signed with the publisher, the better for you, because you will be able to avoid, if not most, but some of those things that we have on this chart to discuss today. So don't be in a rush. I know a lot of people think that the dream scenario is to sign something based on a concept, but it really opens you to a lot of changes and criticism and of potential issues again. But let's presume that at some stage, at the stage of, let's say, demo of a vertical slice, or maybe developer went a little bit ahead and closer to an alpha, developer signs a contract with the publisher. What is the contract with the publisher and developer? It consists from 6 large elements. The major of which is a licensing of the game for the specific platforms to be distributed by the publisher when the game is done, with some revenue share being set in between the publisher and developer. Publisher and developer revenue shares are different for a very, very long time. If again you're not aware, it used to be around 70-30, 70 to publisher, 30% to developer. But with the change of time, it kind of changed to more of a 50-50 logics. But still, if this is a very big sizable budget, developer still somewhere along 30% lines. For this revenue share, publisher obliges to provide developer with the capability of developing this game, with distribution capabilities. So publisher basically says that we will help you to put to all of the distribution channels, all of the platforms. We'll make all of the arrangements for you. We'll make sure that the game will be at all of the, let's say it's a console game, to all of the console stores. We will also produce the retail version of it, physical copies, like all that shit, right? It also obliges to provide developer with the financial means, if necessary, to finish the game, which is typically called advance versus royalty, and it works in a way where if you need a 3 million budget to finish the game from the current state, you will be provided with this 3 million, but you need to keep in mind that this monies for called advance versus royalty for a simple reason, because they will be deducted from from the future sales, and only after that revenue share will come into the full power. Marketing commitments, which are important for our today's conversation, because from my point of view, a lot of issues we're currently seeing going on around the games, around the DIY issues, around the censorship, around the ratings, they are somewhat connected with non-efficiency of the overall marketing effort, and an attempt of people to substitute some of the non-working mechanisms in PR performance marketing that went too expensive, and community work with new type of alluring messages in people's opinion to increase the audiences, and that doesn't work, and this is definitely in marketing department, and we would be talking about that today. Publisher also obliges to provide developer with all of the necessary support in the form of different type of effort multiplication, connections with the bunch of inter-industrial bodies, shows visits, meeting with people, interviews, dinners. If you need a QA company, they probably have a good QA company for you. If you need a localization company, they probably have a localization company. Basically, this is sold like an idea that publisher is on the market for a very long time. They have existing relationship and a lot of opportunities that they can bring to you. They will make the process more effective in general. And IP management as well, which is potentially other projects. Not mandatory, but sometimes it's again a part of the sales pitch of the publisher on their offer and the proposal at the market that will make not just one game, like a trilogy, will also make a bunch of books and cross-media products also hang out with us. It will become the movie one day. It happens. Some of people have that. And IP management in general is an interesting element. You need to pay a lot of attention, because this conversation is typically an opener to whom rights belong in what capacity, how they can be managed, and there's a whole bunch of very important questions that doesn't look to be important when you look at the contract first. Some of them like who has the right to produce and distribute merchandise, and what's the revenue share in the merchandise. In most of the publishers' contract, that would be 100% the publisher, and they would be insisting on IP belong to them. And in my opinion, again, that's something that you should never sell. You should never sign. For IP and intellectual property is the long-term asset you're building, and no one knows if it will become successful. And giving it away is you can do it only if you have another one which you think is better, and you're using this current IP you have to solidify some of the relationships and bring in the stability into development, and your plan is more multi-factor that you basically letting other people know. But in general, even that is not cool, because you don't know. IP rights is something that every developer should try to keep to themselves, or at least when you are discussing ways of that to be managed or limited licensing for a very long time, you need to try to get as much as possible for it. Like it's your mandatory and primary goal is to preserve long-term assets to your studio, because in form of any success, if you don't have them, you would not be able to raise any funds and money. Because like short-term assets like liquidity is not really qualifies as anything interested for private equity and for a lot of VCs as well, if you want to go this way later or operate your own pipeline. But again, when the contract's signed, we have things rolling. We have developments kicking off at the developer side, and let's qualify it as a linear development, which means that you start going through alpha and beta, and at this stage it's still not exposed to the general public. And this is one of the interesting moments as well, because if you work with the publisher, it typically means that the marketing department over here will insist to make the company more compact and more efficient, and start talking about the game, let's say, 6 months before the actual release, or at least do it extensively. Right? Some occasions it would be aligned with other activities of the publishing house, but again, in most of the cases, there will be a period where you just develop the game, or maybe you just barely announced as a fact of the game being side. Here is this going on. Those companies got into relationships, yada yada. But there is no actual marketing campaign. And development cycle is purely dedicated to the development of the game at the developer's end. Then there is a stage which also includes marketing, public exposure. This is where active stage marketing and messaging supervision from the publisher kicks in as well. And this is where you will be developing game as a developer, and at the same time, you would be making a lot of activities to support marketing effort, including producing materials, participating in interviews, going to a variety of shows, and following the marketing plan in general. It also goes with the development together, and so developing and marketing, now you're getting to the point of release. You get game released to all of the platforms, and you then move into sales and the operations. Contract is concluded over the time of licensing of the game. It typically presumes the support stage of the game for some years, depending from the contract, and then it can be renewed or not renewed over the time of expiration. Or if you want to make a second part, it was not part of the first contract, you make another contract. Now, this is what's happening on the side of a developer. What's happening at the side of the publisher? Again, support tries to move into effort multiplication. Also, keep in mind that when you start building anything as a developer with the publisher, like in multiple other relationships, when it begins, it's all great. It tends to, every beginning of collaboration tends to be this flower and candy stage, where everyone tries to make a best impression, everyone tries to make a best effort, and unfortunately it's on the later stages where issues start to happen. And you need to keep your head cool and be pragmatic over this, because if you will buy this initial good impression stuff and you would not pragmatically secure some of the provisional elements in the contract, you can really put yourself in a bad position for one simple reason, because whatever great partner you have, you need to constantly keep in mind one thing, is who has more leverage. Like, who are, those are the relationships, and this is a contract you're signing, you can safely seize at any moment without being damaged and not even spoiling the relationship with everyone. Could you do that? Will you be fine without this money keep on going stages per stage? Will you be fine without this marketing? Can you switch to other opportunities? If yes, then, well, I mean, it's not, a lot of the things that I'm talking about are not that important. But again, unfortunately, in many instances, you will be dependent from the publisher. Dependent on multiple stages. And the better contract you sign, the better be the way or potential clean cut if there is an issue. But again, coming up to what marketing does. Marketing provides general supervision and planning, working with the developer at the development stage before the marketing public exposure. Gets into the active stage with marketing and overall messaging supervision when the marketing public exposure happened at the release time, and then at sales operation. Maybe we'll talk about that, because that's a part of an issue with the current marketing at the publisher side as well. And switches to support activities, like this support stage of marketing when game is out. Publisher also participates into relationship management for you. Now, in some sense, it operates like a partner in the best form. Introduces you to the whole bunch of people, gets you to a bunch of places, secures slots at the shows, at the booth, mostly and in most part at the publisher representation booth, and publisher manager will participate at the marketing side where you're meeting people, and publishing founders in your contact will participate at meeting with external partners. So there's definitely an element of relationship management, and also, just saying this in advance, an element you need to be super careful about. We'll talk about it. On the general business development part, it's very typical for publishing houses to have an overall across the board efforts that contributes all of the partners of the and the development side. Organize internal trainings and seminars, and for people get-togethers, and kind of mixers and stuff, and maybe get you to some unexpected venues, like a product placement opportunity, stuff like that, right? It's something you don't expect typically. I mean, if this is a good business development, not just mere sales, just additional elements that can contribute to game, that can bring in more money for both publisher and yourself, and more opportunities, and maybe expand the audience. But again, things you should be really careful about, because for you, in a lot of the things I will be telling as issues, as potential issues, there is this element which is effectively you need to keep by yourself an ability to refuse anything which is pushed at your head. It's very important. It sounds obvious, but when you are into commercial relationships and people also talk stuff like, we're actually here like one family, this is a sign of the goodwill and stuff, a lot of people just kind of tend to lose it and stop analyzing stuff, and they just buy things emotionally, which I would not suggest you do. But general business development, platform relationship, distribution management, retail partners, and so on, an extremely important element, and this will be on the roll for the whole of the project. And everything qualifies here, like for good timing on Steam, participation at platform activities, promotion of the Steam page, participation at the different demo fests, level of advertisement at the Sony PlayStation Store, and the Game Pass opportunities, maybe like everything that platforms and distributors can propose from their end. It qualifies at this specific part. I would say that, and this is like my opinion only, well, not my only, but my opinion exclusively, a lot of people think that way as well, this is the core publisher function. Securing the distribution and securing an effective marketing are two things which are kind of mandatory, and this is what should be of the most interest for you, because everything else is something that can be done in other places. Like, all of the other things are additional and non-integral. Distribution and marketing is something, it has to be your major points in decision of what publisher you're choosing, really. So those things going on. Other projects potentially is my form of etc. coming on from the IP management. Like I said, a good publisher may qualify you to make a movie at Netflix and whatever. I don't know, stuff. Additional things can sometimes be for deciding factor for if you go with this or other publisher in general. But there are multiple. I'm just having this point to have it marked. Now, let's start talking about issues, and I have few. And these are the things, and this is what I've been asked to produce in general, to have a list of things you need to pay attention to make good contracts, and make sure you don't get bamboozled and duped and flabbergasted, and I just like synonyms of a word, bamboozles and frustrated. But let's start with contractual issues. And there are good publishers, there are bad publishers, there are good partners, there are bad partners, bad actors, good actors, but you need to understand the mechanics. You need to understand why these things happen, what are the legacy of some of the things existing into the industry, what are the things that you need to pay attention to, how in general things moving in the industry currently and used to move before, and how most probably they will move in some future, though I want to believe that a lot of those things will change. And you need to come to the one simple conclusion: if you have a good game, and you need to believe that you have a good game wholeheartedly, if you are trying to put it to the market, you need to love your game. This is mandatory. You want to discuss any of the questions and any of the things which you're not feel comfortable with. Just don't be shy, or don't buy this societal bullshit where we all been told for many years that it's just not comfortable to ask questions that may make other people feel uncomfortable, because a lot of people just lose fortunes because of this. And you shouldn't do that. You should always be on point. You should understand that publishers are businesses made to build businesses. It's a part of their job to a little bit woo you and to create good relationship with you. It's a part of their job to provide you with a pitch so you would decide to put their game in their portfolio, because this is how they increase their capitalization, this is how they get the bonuses, and this is how founders get rich potentially. And this is the primary motivation, not because you're a great person, not because they played games before. It's you and gamers. Like, publishers are business structures, like, to the core, and they're often big companies. And the big companies, corporate companies, they operated by the bottom line ideology 100%. Everything else is mandatory. On the contractual issues, read the contract, and mark everything that goes to responsibilities of the publishing party, and for the honesty, developers party, and ask yourself and ask a counterparty you're talking to how those elements are enforceable, and what is your level of control in decisions made not on the global side of the issues but on the particular sides as well. And I'm talking about if publisher makes a commitment for $500,000 into the marketing campaign, let's say, you want to look at this campaign, you want to understand every detail of that, you want to see numbers associated with the conversion of every outlet being into for this campaign, and understand the decision why exactly those outlets are in and not others. And you want to ask as well how much this is alterable, because it is alterable. Trust me, and it will be altered down the way, and you want to be a part of the decision of this altering. And because what you will see in every contract is everything where you drop the ball is enforceable through the process of development. Every contract goes with a very precise definition of stages of what have to be delivered at every stage, and what quality as well, with the vertical slice being the benchmark. And if you don't manage to deliver every of those positions at the specific dates specified in the contract, publisher has all of the rights not to pay you on the next stage and freeze the development. And in most of the cases, stage would have to be resubmitted under the specified terms. Typically it's 2 to 4 weeks, depending from the size of the project and the way it rolls. So there would be consequences if you are not able to supply the stage in 3-4 times. That there is a very high chance that the project would be terminated. And if you have put the IP, and you will be told that you put an IP into the ownership of the publisher, is a form of the collateral of the financial risks associated with you not being able to deliver on the game. Then you will find yourself in a very weird situation where, let's say, for some reasons, your game being terminated at the beta, and publisher gets all the stuff, get an IP, and tries to finish it without a developer. It happens. It happened before. Audit is presented but minimized, and consequences of malpractices are not clear as well. So talking about things being enforceable. Typically, contract presumes one audit. I think that everyone should push for two. My personal opinion. I also think that this is a point associated with um, what if we will find that money has been spent in a very weird way for marketing, let's say. And that should be a very important question for you because marketing commitments typically get recouped from the game sales before you start getting any revenue as well. So every marketing dollar is a dollar borrowed against the sales of your game in like all of the contracts, and this is something which a lot of people miss. So you need to be able to do an audit, and you need to understand how malpractices are identified and how they can be dealt with in one way or another. It's also the point where you get into the part of the goodwill in general, and I think that it makes sense to presume and contractually mark that in case that something bad happens or something unpredictable happens and audit reflects this, for the first time you will provide publisher with an opportunity to remedy this. But again, if you start to get into this situation, you need to think about a mirror mechanism for if you drop the ball on something drastically, you want to have an opportunity to be to have a chance to remedy this as well. Again, contractually. Jurisdictions don't sign contracts where every legal issues would be solved in weird jurisdictions, or jurisdictions you cannot or for some reason not able to get yourself a good lawyer or go to. I understand, and I signed many contracts where jurisdiction would be at the publisher's end. But if this is a normal first world democratic jurisdiction, whatever, and your lawyer and solicitors are located at the same location, or you can presume the scenario where you can hire someone in this jurisdiction, this is fine. Like, just go for it. But don't sign something weird in the sense of like it can get you to. I know a couple of people that have been put in a very weird position by a necessity to go and have a legal process somewhere at the Gibraltar. Like it just pay attention to it. Operational control is not specified, such as decision responsibilities. Yet all missed deadlines are subject to staging and payment. So something I talked about, but every contract presumes that every non-delivery is an issue associated with the action of the developer, while, and we will talk about it very, very soon, supervision is done by the publisher of producer corps, a producer assigned by the publisher, and in a lot of circumstances, producer might be just not professional enough or being driven by factors that are not affiliated with an idea of benefit of your project, and you need to raise this question. And basically what you need to ask is, like, what happens if we're in between alpha and beta and producer just completely lost mind and just starts making completely unreasonable feedback that goes against our creative control, and we not agreed to that, and we won't, and it looks like a potential case for determination, which we want to avoid. The answer you most probably will get on that is that there will be a secured function for replacement of the producer with someone else. It means a couple of things at the same time. It means that you secure yourself a possibility of going up to the top to C-level executive or the founders of the publisher and have a conversation about someone who controls daily operation control. And you absolutely need to have that, because a lot of people, especially at the West, they would put a lot of effort to make sure that you do not talk with anyone who's above them on the hierarchy. And it's a very cultural, natural thing. Hierarchy is super sacred for the people from the Protestant environment history and this type of work ethics. But you need to have that because you need to preserve level of relationships in between studio founders and the publisher founders, top executives, I would say, because otherwise you put yourself into a kind of a weird um, position for everyone who works at the publisher, where people would not consider you seriously, really, and this is bad. That will affect decisions in general. Plus, you need to have the functional mechanism for a replacement of someone who stopped providing services which are good for your project. You also want to use this opportunity to be a part of making this decision of, let's say, the producer gets replaced and someone new get hired, and you want to be a part of this hiring process as well, because there's a lot of cases at the market at this point where people get hired because someone internally in a company just knows them. It's a lot of nepotism, just a lot of friends just bringing in friends without merit. There's a lot of cases where a person would be hired for a mythical 5 years in AAA, and let's say your project is AA and your project in a completely different genre, and let's say this guy or gal haven't been working for the last 3 years, and you want to be a part of the decision. You want to find a good match, like if that happens. But at the same time, I think it's a good practice to basically say that, yeah, obviously we'll start to work with the first producer if we agree the person has to have a chance and the person working in the company we presume knows how the job's done. But if that doesn't work, you need to have the mechanism of changing that. I know some of the situations where producer be changed 2-3 times from the developer's end. I also know a bunch of the situations where producer been changed 2 to 3 times from the publisher's end, and that was not very good for the developer as well, because new people would come in and would have different vision and ideas as well. So you also want to secure a change of the producer from the publisher side to be a mutual decision as well, and at least to be informed, and you need to understand the reason for it. So this is an important part. The person at the publisher's end who would be involved into the development of your game is someone who will daily affect the whole process of development and the future of your product. Like, think about it. I mean, like, and keep this in mind. Now, another thing about the operational control is you want to make sure that your processes are somewhat aligned with the processes of the publisher, and you spend some time at the initial stage and on the pre-production, which should be in any form. Whatever your game stage is, there should be a stage in a contract that basically would be spent on aligning the processes and procedures and deliveries and stuff and whatever. And everyone should be aware how things work. Everyone should be aware about internal protocols, the speed of the process, the SLAs. Like, I know a lot of people don't think it's a good idea. I think it is. Make sure that there are SLAs associated with all of the steps. Make sure that everyone knows that 24 hours is the time set for emails. A week is a term and the time that you use for the minor fixes in the build, and the 2 weeks for the larger fixes in the build. Go into details. Set your expectations. Put your expectations as yourself and set your expectations for your partner. It will really help you, like really help you. Like 100%. Just do that, and don't be afraid to be weird. Developers are often a bunch of weirdos. It's fine. We're nerds. Every company is set in a unique context and environment. And for a lot of these companies, they have kind of a processes and legacies and the traditions that are very different from the marketing existing practices, and you would not be able to adapt all of them to existing standards. Trust me on that as well. So you want to inform people that this is how you work, and this is how your plan looks, and this is and it would not compromise the expectations on the stages of the delivery, but they need to know about that and they need to keep it in mind, and you are definitely not changing that because you won't. Non-disclosure can be way too intimidative for all relevant and possible information related to all product-related activities in the subject. Just contract-wise, there is a general observation made by a lot of people in the legal practices and into the game development in general. And it goes for everyone spend a lot of time looking at the provisions at the first 2 pages where you see just the numbers and your credentials and the general description of what the deal is. People somewhat pay attention to responsibilities of the both parties. People typically spend some attention looking at the termination and the survivability. Everything else is for 99% people is the secondary priority information, and it shouldn't be for you. You need to go into everything related to behavior related expectations and practices. You need to look into information management related stuff. You need to look at the security obligations as well. You need to look at everything which is marked with the asterisk or done small font with a maximized attention in general. You will find a lot of things which would be fine for the companies which are set in a different context, but that wouldn't suit you. And you need to ask these questions, and I'll give you a couple of examples on that. So a lot of publishers will build their marketing effort in a way where they effectively would want you to not to talk with anyone about anything until the specific date, and they will have it in a contract for everyone. Let's say you already went ahead and you have a website that announced a lot of these things, and your question would be, should we take down the site? And they would say yes, but maybe you don't want to do that. And maybe it's a situation where you got your website up for a week and it's something that you can do, and you agree with the decision, and it's kind of mutual. And maybe your website's been shed, and now you have much more ambition and money and ability to produce these things, and you want to build another site. So that would be something that you would want to go to. Let's say your website and Discord and materials, a bunch of other things exist for a half a year now, and you're running a community of 10,000 people interested in your game. You just cannot do that. You would be foolish to go and listen to marketing people who often just don't care. They because they deal with a lot of projects, they want to do stuff systemically in many instances. So you need to make it a part of the conversation and discuss it and say that, look, this is a situation, we need to talk about it. And that's one example. Or let's say your plan is to build the studio very independently, and you have a relationship with, you have, let's say, 2 or 3 projects for different platforms, and you have a relationship with the variety of the publishers, and you want to make sure that everything marked as something related to exclusiveness and stuff would be discussed as well, because standard forms and standard definitions would not work for you. So keep this in mind. But the general rule of the Somerville is that the every typical contract that been given to you as a standard one is something which is not put to your leverage. It's not something that considers all of your interests. So it's your job to go to that through that very attentively and align it with your future strategy, and be very honest with the partner, and sometimes a little bit brutally honest, basically saying that, look, this is not what we're looking here. We're not going to do that. Not going to give you this. We're looking at this as a one-time deal. We like your audience. We like what you currently do in the market. From your 10 games lineup, 4 are really looking at us, and we think, and the game is reaching better, and we have our own funding, and we think that this is a good potential launch, If it will work for both of us, we will consider a possibility of working with you together. But we are an independent company. We want to hold all of the communication with community in our own hands. We consider your marketing outside of access to your audience and auxiliary effort. So let's just keep it this way. Let's do it that. And if they're fine with that, then fine. Or in other circumstances, it would be all right. We are a new, fresh studio. We don't really have money. We were very close to our runway, and we have this game, and our plan is to make 3 parts of that with a bunch of DLCs for a bunch of consoles. And this publisher is known for doing specifically that. So we're kind of looking into agreeing into a lot of things. But we still would want to preserve the ownership of the IP, but we will give 100% on the marketing side to what they do, with the exception of being able to hold a community relationship through the developer side, not through the marketing side, because we don't believe that a company with the 15 projects in a portfolio would be able to do that with the same attention as we do. We understand how much community is an important and complex factor. So, and those scenarios are super various, and you need to pick yours. Now, issues you need to look at the supervision side. Again, whole bunch of situations. You get yourself a great producer who will work with you through the whole of the project and be extremely useful, and you will become best friends and launch it to the market and have a shared time at the I don't know, a documentary at Prime or Disney Plus telling how much great of an experience it was for everyone. But life is life. Things might go into a completely different direction, and you need to pay attention on those things. It's very simple for producers to manipulate feedback to bury down the deadline. And this is the reason why you need to establish all of the deadline procedures and toponymy of the feedback and type of the feedback and definition of feedback being critical, not critical, and how critical points influence deliveries and non-criticals are going into the next stage, and you're obliged to fix it over the next stage and stuff like that. So it's a two-side line. You need that to be honest. Expectations from you is that you will deliver for all of these positions and the checklists. And you would not play this stupid developers, and some developers do that, like you formally deliver on these checkpoints, and quality-wise, they're like shit, right? I mean, it breaks trust. It doesn't work. Like, you need to be 100% interested in not in getting the next advance and next tranche of monies. You need to be interested in making a good game in the first turn. And money is the means to produce this game. Though from other hand, you need to be able, on your expectation from the producer, not to get crazy, be professional enough, and be able to provide you with the substantial and reasonable feedback, which is aimed to make the game better without breaking its integrity and initial author of plan and idea behind it. The way you discuss it is, again, simple. You sit down, you qualify what type of feedback, what kind of vision, you align the vision initially at the beginning of the development, spend some time on how the project procedures work. You need to define level of access of producer into internal processes as well, because you don't want that person to be able to go to anyone at the team at any time of the development and put any task without knowledge of everyone else about that happening, for example, which is kind of obvious, still happens a lot. And at your end, you don't want situations like you change a big part of the development without informing the publisher's producer. This is also unacceptable, really. But keep in mind that power is still at the producer's end, because if something happens which goes out of the practices, and producer is effectively, producer can say that we will not accept this stage, we're not gonna pay for the next one. The question to you is that are you able to say that, well, then screw you, we're out, like, let's look at the contract, let's get the contract on the table. If you do that, we don't agree due to this and this reasons, and we're out. Can you do that? Now, I think that in most of the circumstances without damage, you probably not. So you need to define as much as possible and as clear as possible in this department at the beginning of the development. Relationship locked hierarchy wise, dev cannot go to up the chains for otherwise than specified without consequences. We talked about that. I will reiterate a little bit. Whoever you talk to in a company, if you started to talk with people on the top, keep on talking with the people on the top. Yes, executives would be irritated about that. But don't care. A lot of people play politics about excluding people from for higher top of the hierarchy, for people who takes decision to interpret everything that happens in your relationships and making this a political tool. Don't allow that to happen. If you have a possibility to talk with the most important person in the company, do that and do that regularly. Like not in a matter of annoying point, but just sustain these relationships to the point where if anything happens, you're always able to go into location of the person, have a nice dinner, and politely discuss some of the issues that happened in the development, and have a word in a situation that otherwise will unwrap without your participants. Do not allow people to interpret your things. Like it's a killer. If you allow, you will be out extremely quickly due to someone protecting their own self-interest in any even remotely even situation even remotely reminding a crisis and making someone scared. You will be out. So keep on relationship with the people at the top and be able to have a conversation with them. Degree of feedback is not specified often, and by degree of feedback, it's different from the first part. I want to say that what you want to do, you want to basically make sure that when you finish the pre-production and when everything is approved, no crazy shit get introduced somewhere in between because someone just wanted that without contract being changed completely, without an addendum, basically. It means that, look, I've been telling the story before. I was a part of the project once where for production and the management decided to hire a contemporary American Hollywood writer who read the script of the story, which set into the distant future, and came back with the script of an idea of 10 flashbacks into an Atlantis in the past that will help to open the character arc of multiple characters, but also will multiply the budget of the game almost twice. All right, I'm whining, not twice, but let's say 40-50%. Like the person literally wanted to introduce a completely different setting, which would be active. Think about the size of the magnitude of the Assassin's Creed, another timeline. And for our next question was, will our budget be extended due to this request? And it turned out that the management didn't even knew that this change is happening, and they were like 100% against for increasing the budget. But they would be fine with the changes if we would do that for the same amount of money, which is virtually impossible. But a lot of people would agree to this shit and start burying this game into completely unreasonable feedback that goes against any reasonable point of decree. Also, keep in mind that a lot of these things happening because not because people are bad or trying to frame you or screw you, though obviously there are people who are bad and they would try these things. But in most of the circumstances, it happens because people just don't really have the skill and understanding of why these changes would be so expensive and dramatic. Like writers are creative people, especially consultant writers. They get in and they basically, I think that will make this much better. And you're like, yeah, but much expensive. It's like, that's not my job to evaluate these things. I'm not even the part of this whole thing. Like, it's your job. So, and the person is right. It's indeed your job to try to catch these things and to define initially what is the degree of the feedback and how it will be controlled in general. Inexperience supervision will get you to the production hell. Look, I'll be very straight here. I know that a lot of people don't like me saying these things, but I'm way too old and I've for a long time in this industry, so I don't really care. If someone tries to take the team of 20 people which been making 5 or 6 games before and like 15 years in the industry, and set someone's nephew or someone who they hired for 40-50,000 dollars a year because they are saving money, who spent 2 years into the game development of doing QA jobs, and they try to put this person into position of the producer for of this company. Don't take that. Don't work with inexperienced people. Don't work with too much asymmetrically inexperienced situations at all. Like, why would you? Like, experience is factual. It doesn't matter if person is a good person and they are extremely progressive and they have these amazing ideas and super talented. Producer is just not the job, and the commercial relationship of this level is just not this kind of the job to put someone who is extremely asymmetrical experience-wise with the team of trying to deliver this project. Like, you need to find someone who is at least at the same level, like maybe better, and I'm talking like functionally better. Also, please try to avoid situations where asymmetry works in a completely different way, trying to bring in the producer who's been working in, let's say, Activision and Microsoft, managing a 200 million budget for a 600 people team, and try to put this person to work with a AA 50 people team with a 5 million budget is a very simple way to kill this team, because a producer with an experience like that will be relying on existing practices and his previous experiences of having a situation where he has all of these resources and the super big corporation behind them, and that just wouldn't work well for anyone. Producer pushing soft non-contract specified positions like marketing related changes and materials is an issue as well. Point 6. So what I mean by that is, let's say you got into the marketing stage and supervision producer person works closely to marketing, and they come up and they basically say that, look, it's not on a contract, but we need a trailer for every major show now, like 1.5 minutes, engine rendering for story plots and stuff, and we also need and this is not specified anywhere, but we also need 100 screenshots every week, and they should be done manually, and stuff like that, like, or let's say marketing, and I know that this is what a lot of people talk about, and this is how it works, and I want to spend a little bit of more attention here. So there is a lot of cases where DIY agencies or like other companies racketeer their way into development. It's true. There's a lot of ways where big companies are looking for the services of DIY agencies because they want to impress some of the founders of some of the investors. That's true as well. But I think that the most frequent situation in the market is actually when marketing is getting, and we will talk about it a little bit later, marketing getting to the point where they need to substitute some of the things where they drop the ball with other messaging, and they need to sell internally something incredibly attractive for internal thinking, and they come up with this concept which will always look into making audience larger. I talked about this before. A part of an issue here is it's like everyone talks about new audiences, but no one talks about the risk of what amount of percentage of old audience you will lose introducing these elements. And I think that everyone should, really. But no one does it because it doesn't sell. And it's a form of a lie. It's a form of bamboozling the founders. But it happens very, very often. And you want to specify and you want to put it out contractually that there is a vision, there is a script of the story, there is an essence. These are the key points that will not be changed 100% of the time. And for some of the things which are reasonable, I actually, and I've been telling this for a long time, if you really want to oppose anything related to artificial agendas, the smartest way is to have the minimal representation which is integral to your story being done in advance. Like, just, and we will do that actually. If you make a big game, a third-party adventure, you might have a little bit of this, little bit of that, and that would be in a comfortable way for you, and you would do that professionally. You'll have people of few nationalities obviously into the game, and they will take all of the parts responsibly, and your character is traveling within a bunch of countries, so of course you will. Of course there are men and women and children into the game, which is a heavy story game. Of course it is. And publisher will tell you to be careful about children, by the way. Of course, from the point of view of sexuality, I mean, if you want to introduce someone homosexual, someone with LGBT type of the part at the positive side, do it your way in advance, very slightly, very in a very natural way. Because the problem of people who are trying to change stuff from non-studio side, who are trying to demand things basically from the outside, they're not specialized in anything than you do. Like, look, all of these people, like in media, in marketing, and often, unfortunately, in the producership corps at this point, they don't understand how to make games. Just, they never really did, a lot of them. They don't understand that it's incredibly stupid and hard to demand people to change anything and demand it in an obnoxious manner, because it often would be just impossible or very hard. And you want to have a line of the opposition where you just say that, look, we settled at the beginning of the relationships and at the contract side, that we signed the contract. We basically we don't change anything. We do it the way comfortable for us, and those changes are unacceptable for us, like at all. And if you set this in advance, and if this is in a contract, then you can work around it. And even if you would need to introduce anything, you would do it on your own rights and on your own terms, to make everyone kind of bit happy. But it would be under your control, and keeping those things under your control is super important. And again, I mentioned this a couple of times in various scenarios. The question is not DIY is just the most prominent subject now. There's a bunch of other topics that you want to avoid from let's try new audience thing type of this scenario. Because it typically goes against the integrity of the game and the game general message, and it alienates all of the core audience and make your game obsolete, and it just doesn't sell to anyone at the end. Okay, the game just do not appeal to anyone. And again, supervision and marketing people, they would never take responsibility for the game flop. They would just say that something else happened, because they will try to interpret whatever feedback you have the way which is advantageous for them, because they're closer to the decision center. So this is how it works if you wanted to know. Unapproved consultants are an issue as well. And the problem with all of the unapproved consultants is that consultants are not specialists in anything. Consultants and the overall, and it's often not even the consultancy, it's often how the consultants' feedback are insisted to be implemented by the people who hired consultants. It's people showing up in the office that provide opinion, which should be an opinion, which should be non-mandatory, which should work. It's something you can look as an alternative outlook of someone on some specific issue. But because psychologically, because for someone who hires consultants, pay a lot of money, often a lot of money, and they've been convinced that those people are experts in something, they would also insist that you would use this consultants' feedback, who are not specialists in what you do, again, to an extent. And you want to at least be able to approve consultants and say that this should be happening on demand and only in the situations where it's reasonable, where there's necessity appeared for it, or just not, or avoid it whatsoever. Also, keep in mind as well that when consultancies are happening, it will go against your budget, because it will mostly qualify as marketing expenses. So think about it this way: when someone is introducing this for a DIY or for a specific expertise agency those money will be reimbursed from your sales as well as a developer. You need to keep this in mind, and because it is, you have the word in it, because you it's a part of your revenue, and you need to have a word into this situation. So that goes with supervision issues, but again, try to get friendly with the producer, try to get someone professional, try to get someone specific for your genre and someone for the audience you're working at. Like, this is the best advice you can get now when it goes for the producer in at the publisher's end. Marketing model issues. Marketing is very, very much non-effective at this point, from my point of view. I don't like what's going on over there. I think that the community factor became prevalent in everywhere, and performance marketing is prevalent in AAA and the console, and this is a part of the reason why they are losing so much of the market at this point, because it just doesn't work. I think that professional PR and media doesn't work at all, and they need to reinvent themselves. And I also think that community-related stuff is also highly undervalued from the point of view of who are the people who are doing those things into publishers and developers and everywhere. And talking about problematic points you need to pay your attention as well is marketing plans are almost in 100% will get altered with no real transparency with developer. So what happens is we'll look at this situation, right now, how it becomes a systemic internal issue in the crisis in marketing today. But I want to start with just pointing out the major things and the major elements of it. And they are, you will be told that we will spend $500,000 for this 10 streamers and 10 outlets and 5 shows and whatsoever. And then in 3 months, it will turn out that it's other streamers, outlets are the same, shows are different. You might have a conversation that we need to extend in the marketing guarantee, but again, it will be recouped from your end. Someone might have an idea of something better as it would be presented to you. And a lot of the things will happen post factum. All of them need to happen with your participants. Like, starting with the plan, do not ever trust on a word that like this and this and this media in this outlet is relevant to what you have. You need to go and you need to check it by yourself, and you need to look at the associated amount of money. You need to question, why is that this specific amount of money? Is it spread in between a bunch of other projects as well? How is that managed? What would be the materials? What are the typical numbers associated with the materials on this website today? Will there be a video materials or not? What is your level of participants? What materials you would need to produce and when for this specific effort? Like, this is how you discuss marketing, and you need to provide adjustments from your end, and you need to insist very hard that you would be informed on any and all changes in this department. It doesn't work otherwise. It just goes into a hell if it's not. Marketing will flatten expenses, including outlets. They know for years they pay annually for all services. It means that if, let's say, you have an IGN or Kotaku or whoever, or any outlet, like, it's just I'm just coming up with the random names. And let's say in your marketing plan it says that the amount of efforts would be $20,000 over the year for this and that advertisement and those things and yada yada. And the thing that you should question and that you might check as well is that those efforts would be spread in between all 10 other games of the publisher. And I seriously doubt that the contract's been $200,000 really. I think that in a lot of cases what happens is the marketing just tries to save money for their employer, for basically saying that, look, we had a contract for 100,000 and we have the quota for this amount of articles and stuff, right? And overall advertisement and things. And we will sell it to to 20 developers, saying that it's $20,000 each, and then like it's actually $100,000 contract for everyone, and therefore just flatten the cost due to the composite contracts for multiple positions. You want to check on those things. Like, it's nothing bad on checking on the market prices and how the specific positions are costed this specific way. Again, no reason not to do that. No real conversion data in PR and community departments for interpretation of data points, which I consider to be one of the biggest issues that led us on where we're at. Is because from where I'm from, developer were still talking to community and to gamers a lot directly. Back in the day, like 20 years ago, 3,000 years ago, I've been there, Gandalf. It's been happening. But currently, at this point, it's not the case. Now we are in a position and the situation where effectively no one from the developers are often allowed to talk to the community if they're working with the publisher or with the platform. Consider that developer are goofy and the stupid entity that do not know what to say right on what time. They should be constantly educated and need to be taught in messaging to comply to multiple factors so issues not appear, which I consider to be mostly a big smoking pile of bullshit. People just create these things to look more important and to control other people in relationships. And at the end of the day, look, I wrote a tweet about it recently. So someone comes up with the idea of the promotion for the new audiences. There is a very simple way of checking if this idea works or not. Let's make a separate version with all of these changes for the new audiences and the version, a vanilla version for the old audiences, also revision, no changes at all. Set them for the 2 week for a A/B sales test and market it and see what sells more. Like, why no one does it? And I can answer you why, because, well, first of all, it would be claimed more expensive. Second, it would be like, you don't trust us, and immediate drama about it. And the third one, it will show by result that no one wants to have propaganda versions of the games at all. And people you're trying to position as the new audience are not buying games, they just like to talk about it. And people who are you alienating, the core audience, they're actually buying games, and you don't want to alienate them, but people in marketing want to have these projects. A lot of people just want to have this new idea and the personal project internally for a potential promotion. It's like it's an issue of personalities. It's often an issue of just people trying to play the game, as they call it, to play themselves up into the system by the cost of literally anything and anyone else's interest. And you don't want to be a hostage of it. When you are revising and when you're looking and reviewing the marketing plan, you want to have at least a grasp of the potential conversion of the real existing examples, of how many people would come from this specific source and real examples, and for how many people like those posts, how many people are not bots, how many people actually posted about for them purchasing the product, and then how many of these people commented on the for actual feedback on the game after playing this amount of hours. Yes, we need these systems. I mean, otherwise it's just burning money on the parking lot for someone's idea of what is cool rather than actual effect. And that's extremely irritating, because for people who are just extremely confident, have no specialization, and have no accountability, are dangerous for both quality of the project and marketing budgets, and they would never admit that they were wrong, and because they're so self-confident, they will probably just will get away from the situation by throwing away someone under the bus when this happens. And I think that those people are the actual biggest issue of the industry at this point. And I think that these people should be out, and people who support them as well should be out as well. But since we're all polite and intelligent and actually nice folks over here, I think that the real way to deal with these things will be actually bringing in level of accountability and the control mechanisms that will just make such shenanigans impossible. And a big part of those videos and talks and my appearances are specifically about that and informing people about how to make these mechanics accountable, so we will get better quality and better communication and the better marketing. Marketing is not in touch in gamer CDM, working through the middleman only, which is extremely ironical because in some sense, especially in some publishers who are employing a lot of agencies, who are talking to media, who are talking to press, marketing is also a middleman that can be cut. But they also insist on not having any middlemen, and I find it extremely ironic. But at the same way, weirdly logical in the current way of things, because people projecting so much. And a lot of PR agencies are abusing a relationship due to exclusivity. Dev has to supervise. Here's a very simple advice. Outside of controlling campaign and having a vote and an ability to review all of the suggested actions and materials, insist on having your own PR and marketing and community people as well. And where you see publishers PR doesn't cut it, and they would not be able to cut it in many things, trust me. Advertisement of the social networks is something still something new for a lot of people over there, like really. And even if it's not, they would try to do that without having an organic core and working with organic core with performance marketing, which would be a vain effort and just again just burning down the money. And compensate with your own efforts on the things that the marketing and PR, the publisher side, cannot. And when someone shows up, for let's say a hired PR agency and says that no, we manage this, you cannot touch that, well, tell them to screw off. I mean, it's really idea should be that everyone works together. Coordinating is all right, but you want to be a part of those activities, especially the community side. You want to have your own community. You want to own this 100%. It should be at your end. And you should not give it away to anyone, never. Just insist on that. The community, because gamers do not want to talk to publishers at all. The gamers don't like publishers in general. Gamers want to communicate to developers only, and they want to have a 24/7 contact with the community manager and sometimes with other developers as well. Should just have it this way. You want to have an ability to make any amount of keys and provide an access to the latest public available material. Let's say you had the demo to community in 100% capacity. I'm quite sure you would not be surprised that in some of the situations, attempts of publishers to prohibit showing demo or giving an opportunity for gamers to play the demo led to brackets leaks again. So developer would just leak the version and just be, oh, whoopsie doopsie, that shit happened, and then continue to talk to the community as well. Security breach, but hey, well, I mean, everyone liked it. Do you want to break the contract? I wouldn't think so. And then you communicate. And typically, publisher doesn't want to have it as well because, again, they have tons of games. They don't want to extensively talk to a lot of people in the community. And community managers who are supposed to do that, they're severely underpaid. And they have to crunch a lot. And people in a constant stress. This is why they often so irritated. And we talked about it at the side scrollers. But so that's this part. And on the relationship management, before we go to the relationship management, I just want to exemplify how this marketing thing works and how it escalates into and why it happens into so much of bullshit show in many instances. In my opinion, it all starts from the fact that publishers often work with the media whom they keep completely under control, in a soft meaning, but still under control. And in that sense, I cannot imagine market situation where there's a number of entities and you pay those people to review products and they would give you bad reviews, and it gives you the false impression that you can do and you can have whatever you can, and whatever you build, and everyone would still give it good reviews, and those good reviews can be reported to founders and you would get bonuses, and system just works. There is only one issue with the system, is that it doesn't really include developers, sales, or gamers. And this is the reason why people in PR and media often hate games and gamers, because they are actually standing in a way of the ideal world for them, where things can just happen all like business to business, and they don't want to think about actual real world happening around this bubble. Yeah, I mean, like the controlling media with money turns into control of opinion, basically, by for providing people with invitation, for providing this budget early versions for the reviews. For all of the requisitions are based on the soft control, and everyone who thinks differently and everyone who's not in the system, they're like outcasts, right? You know, like, and there is this feeling that you should ostracize them if they are trying to go against this formed core of the narrative being built. And it goes to a number of other effects, where it turns out that PR and media who operate this way, they can control only non-effective nodes like access media, avoid effective nodes like influencers with opinion. Everyone with opinion leads to irritation, or a necessity of the damage control, so additional work, and people tend to hate it. So if you really look at this, a lot of paid PR campaigns, they will work with the medium-sized streamers, whose business model is to work with all of the content, with all the product placement. Like big streamers, they choose games that are A, in their field and their specialty, B, they specifically like, or C, they're basically telling that we're gonna review your game, but if we don't like it, we're gonna tell about it, because their audience is more important than the contract that the publisher provides. And that should be the whole sense. Like, people have been asking me, like, how would media supposed to survive if they would not take money from people who advertise the product? Well, I would say that there should be two types of media. Like, this media that does reviews on the games that being provided to them, it's either should buy them and should pay for all of this discount for all of this benefits, or they should market as advertisement. Like, those articles should be marked as advertisement, because like they've been in relationship with people who provide them with contracts. Or there should be media that operates subscriptions from the users and advertisement from the users, and they do not take advertisement from people who produce these goods, and they do not use these benefits, and they provide honest opinion on everything that they work with. I mean, that would be an ideal world. But other effects, right? Community considered low level hassle, because again, community has its own opinion, and it's a system where you coordinate an effort from the center, and it goes to media talks to community talks back to media interprets this data back to the center, and you collect all of this together and interpret this back to the founders. And often it just turns out to be not really what it is. Performance marketing allows low relevance. This is a killer. It's in the big successful games. It doesn't really happen, especially the live ops, because some of the marketing people who works in the larger live ops operations are actually some of the most professional people in the industry at this point, like the most professional. And they understand that it's a very expensive animal. They understand their audience. They analyze lots of stuff. I mean, like, but that's a completely different business now. People who builds performance marketing for and traffic acquisition for let's say story-based games on the PC, in many instances they just do it so wrong. It's just again, no core audiences, no understanding of audiences, just general bullshit from the internet of let's buy $50,000 of advertisement for the Facebook for the shooter game because it's apparently 20 to 25-year-old males from United States, right? Without consideration of the setting and stuff and everything. And it happens more than you can imagine. And that not all of that leads to an internal crisis with too much games and management necessity. Puts people on a constant stress internally into the marketing departments. They start dropping ball too often and has the necessity to substitute effective solutions with trendy and loud bullshit, just to create a lot of distraction in general from their actual direct responsibilities. It's extremely hard to manage all campaigns with the same effort for them, so they need to prioritize, and this prioritization often goes against your project. They need to scale, and they start to hire a lot of low-skilled employees who often are better at the soft skills than the hard skills than some people had internally, and those people slowly squeeze people with actual skills, and that the department digress to just a bunch of people who can talk loud and who are less expensive, and they are more proactive and being pleasant and entertaining for executives and management. Those people understand at the same time that they cannot produce any value, so they start actively to mitigate responsibility by the group and the committee thinking and by hiring external entities. And this is the point where structure goes into systemic crisis with the full skew of issues like data misinterpretation, decision filibustering, and insecure passive-aggressive business in general that hurts both publisher, founders, investors, and the developers. And that's an example. It's very easy to construct those things when you understand how they work and understand. And moreover, I mean, if you look at this model, it's so easy to fix a lot of these elements. It's so easy to make 3, 4, 5 right decisions to unravel this crisis into actual functional structure. But no one really does it because currently companies are dominated by the fear of necessity of the growth in general, and marketing is traditionally considered to be a big part of that. And even if people understand that their department is a complete shit at this point, a fucking shit show, right? They still cannot really put it away 100% because that would be a sign of the investors and in some form an admittance of the fault in the mistake. And so that just doesn't happen. Ridiculous. The reason why this industry goes to crisis is that because more than half of the people in it understand issues associated with what's going on, but they would not ever publicly recognize it because they're afraid of the consequences of the previous actions or just guilt by association of people making those decisions that led to what's going on. So we'll just see house burning where everyone is still in the house, in my opinion. I mean, but again, my hopes are there are still ways and opportunities to change and to take some conclusions and experience out of what's been happening, and that will help to build some other stuff that comes after. And anyway, happy to share these knowledges. And relationship management issues is something that goes on on your representation. Be very careful on the representation of the publisher of your studio to any external third-party companies. We'll talk separately about the platforms, but in general. And keep in mind that you get sold. When you get into the relationship with the publisher structure or even a venture fund structure or any other structure, and you start to produce the product that starts to produce attention and start to produce some audience, and then at some stage sales, that gets into a part of the presentation that underlines and shows and presents it as success of the structure you're working with. So being able to represent you and associate with you if you're successful is extremely important for those organizations. And you might really give it a little bit of a deeper thought and have a conversation of what can be done and what cannot be done, and what cannot be done in a way of representation without your awareness. Really can save you some nerves, especially because of the fact that representation works in a way where people tend to do it first and then apologize even if you're pissed, rather than not to do it at all, and you cannot do a shit about it. So keep this in mind as well. Now, points I wanted to get your attention to is a publisher is working their self-interest trying to monetize developer and IP on all levels. This is what I just mentioned. Active attempts to make all external relationship exclusive for publisher. Don't allow that to happen. Never. Like, an exclusivity of communication is something that you, it's a free speech basically, and representation of your company should always be your priority. And even if there is a sensible data, you need to have an opportunity to discuss it, vet it, and put it outside the way you see that. And if there is a different levels of sensitivity of this data, you might also want to include it in the contract. That tends to really help. Going overboard with presentation of data from developers part of their own business model. This is, I just mentioned, and abusing financial leverage in representation, basically saying that, look, we're paying for this project, we're a legit partner, we want to be a bigger part of that, so we are going to sell this whole thing to a new investor, let's say a strategic deal. And our relationship would not change, but it will change. And even if this is happening, you really need to understand how the change of the course from the publisher side would influence your project and your relationship, which are probably still ongoing. Not accountable for non-delivery obligations as well. Like, anything that goes to the relationship automatically qualifies as a soft factor. And you need to sometimes keep people to their word, even if not at the legal side, but just maybe at the personal side. Basically saying that, look, this is the second time you broke the promise that you've been putting. I really start to get annoyed about this is going on to happen, and we need to change how it works. Because you cannot live in a world where things that have been told by people are constantly get altered or changed to their own benefit without your participation in the process. It means that you're in an abusive relationship if you are. And you don't want to be in an abusive relationship to the point where even if you got into one, maybe it's better to crash and burn everything to get out of it, because like, those situations never end in a good fashion. They never end well. If you feel like you're in one, get away immediately. Maybe with the even if the cost looks high, trust me, it will be still lower in comparisons how it will develop. General business development by the publisher side is not generally effective. That's one of its biggest issues, because again, it's across the board. All of these initiatives are across the board, and a lot of people are thinking about the business development of more like sales in general. And some of the opportunities that can be procured for the publishers end, they really should be produced from the developers. So a situation I'm trying to aware you from, very off, and again, something where you need to get your focus at is you will be told, because people sell very, very well in the industry. People are good talkers into the game development industry. You will be told that we will do that, do's and these things for you. And you will think that, well, since other people are already doing that, we probably should not. And the truth is, you should do it yourself. Even if they do it from their end, that's fine, keep them informed. But you should do it from your end in general. So just do it this way. Not really a business development at this point. Again, business developers typically do some stuff related to sales or some weird shit related to their backgrounds. And some of their efforts they're actually not compatible with your product. And you need to have an opportunity to be able to say that it's not compatible with your product. It's as simple as this. Well, like, it's maybe the biggest, maybe Pornhub one really likes your game and wants to pay publisher $5 million for advertising product placement of dildos in your kids shooter. But you probably don't want to do that. I don't know. And a lot of business developers, they would not, they get so much merit with the projects that they would disregard these factors, and they would be kind of like, yeah, that's fine, it's gonna be fine, it's all innovative, we should do that still. And remember that the business developers are in general paid bonuses per deals that they're bringing in and the KPIs that they're producing, so they are quantifiable. Business developers are actually good people because they're quantifiable and accountable. Like, and well, there are two type of business developers, like good business developers who are accountable due to the deals they're making, or who provide you with the quantifiable data equal to their efforts. And then there are bullshit business developers who are telling this it was just a bad year, and trying to stick to the work of the department rather than individual performances. You know, like those are the bad ones. Like don't trust those ones. They're just hanging out with anyone else to take on the salary and get the equal part of the bonuses into the department. Yeah, and like I said, you know, like it tend to block studio efforts to do stuff by their own if they're like occupied with it. But in general, it's an auxiliary point of it's not that of the serious. And for the last but not the least, we have platform and distribution. And this is a super important one, because reality is that as a developer, you would need to spend a lot of efforts to build relationship with the platform on the level that a lot of publishers have it. Moreover, every platform tends to prioritize relationship with the publishers who has 20 projects rather than with developer that has one. And if you're going the publishing route, you would need to build your relationship with the publisher to prioritize on the relationship with the platforms. Once they see your game, once they check out your code, you know, like once you rotate into this world, you would also need to build your own relationships. But still, when this is going on, the something you need to pay attention for is platform relationship always over with relationship with the studio, as mentioned. Will push any charges from platform as mandatory. No actual discussion about it. So what I'm trying to say is, the structure of relationship between the publisher and the platform presumes the definite level of resilience, which is unattainable by the developer at this point. Just really, you cannot afford yourself a bunch of things that publisher can afford, and that would be like Steam would pay in the next 60 or 90 days. Often developers cannot really wait for it. So publisher would need to elevate it. You need to have this conversation. Like when the game goes out and the financing's over, for what money you would use to pay salaries for the next 3 months before stuff get recouped, and before, you know, like the revenue share actually would start happening, and money's receivables would be arriving at the publisher's end. So you need to discuss this asymmetry as well. Like you need to basically say that looks how are we doing this? Like what are we paying for? Like maybe we need to amend the contract a little bit, that some of the revenue share goes like with the split immediately, or you would be borrowing us money against this as a short-term loan against arriving resources, and so on and so on and so on. So think about it. A lot of people missed this point, and a lot of people got into the situation where they literally had like this like a dead quarter of no money because they just didn't have the stock. And you shouldn't get into the same issue. If you work with the platform by yourself, keep in mind as well that you will be waiting for this money for quite some time. And just look at the taxes as well. Explore situation related to tax, because platform deductions plus associated tax is more than you think. Depending from the territories, you would be getting less money. Depending from the location of the publisher, you need to really carefully look at the definitions of gross and net and adjustable gross, and a bunch of other interesting terms that people tend to come up with. And you need to be very careful about contractual definitions of it, because you don't want to get in a situation where you will get all of the deductibles happening before your revenue share, even those that should not really happen, or at least deductibles that are bargainable, let's put it this way. Overselling relationship with platforms to minimize marketing expenses. It's like, why would we spend more money here if those guys at Sony are like super cool friends, and we are like quite sure that we can get you games for these discounts and through like on these positions on the market store, so everyone would see that. And the problem here, and this is quite sure, because it's a notice element. For most of the publishers oversell those promises, and they might just not happen. And if they're not, it means that the marketing in general didn't presume this hole and this drop into the effort, and it needs to be somehow compensated. So again, keep people to the word. Like publisher have contract with the platform. Like, and if someone says that, like kid, don't worry, we'll have your game everywhere. We're like, oh yeah, cool, nice to hear that. Can I look at the contract with the platform so they commit to the fact that you will, and specifically on what positions for what time as well? Because it's important for us to know, because like we need to understand what's the cost of the risk of missing the deadlines, because you have already set with the publisher on a contract if you're promising this for the specific dates, I presume. Again, a whole bunch of very interesting conversations may happen around those. We'll still push to any and all deductibles at developer, and as an ex-manager from the Epic Games to the Unreal Engine department, I'm bringing this position specifically by multiple cases of publishers who would want deductibles on the engine to happen at the developer's end, which is not necessarily the case how it should be happening. Actually, in most of the cases, it should be happening at the publisher's end. It's just developers don't know that. I mean, like, and so now you do. So don't allow people to do that to you. And has no real interest in discussing business terms improvement for the project with platforms, because it's all set for them for a whole bunch of various positions. And so yeah, I mean, like, those are the points that you need to keep in mind. Here's my little crib. I hope it's been useful. It turned out to be, as usually, an hour and 36 minutes. And this is the reason why I made this video, because like there's literally no place over here for questions. But please put your questions into the video of at the YouTube. I will be super happy to answer them at the separate stream I will have at the end of this week, I presume. I also think that potentially this video can be cut to a number of shorter clips, which I would put to my other English language channel with a bit of a shorter content. Well, anyway, have a good day, guys. Have a good week, and I'll be talking to you soon for talking about other interesting elements in the industry. Again, here I am. It's been quite interesting. Alex is out. Talk to you soon. Cheers.